The stars looked different this far from Earth. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony and watched the giant space station grow larger on the main screen. The Galactic Council headquarters was bigger than most cities back home. Lights blinked across its surface like tiny jewels in the darkness of space. "We're getting close, Captain," said Lieutenant Danny White from his station. His voice was quiet. Everyone on the bridge knew this might be the most important day in human history. Jake nodded and walked over to the communications panel. "Send word to Ambassador Carter. Tell her we'll dock in 30 minutes. Ambassador Lisa Carter was in her quarters going through her notes one more time. She had been Earth's voice to the galaxy for 5 years now. In all that time, she had never felt this nervous. The aliens were angry with humanity, and she wasn't sure she could fix it. The door chimed, and Commander Alex Rodriguez walked in. He was tall and serious with gray hair that made him look older than his 40 years. "The captain says we dock soon. Are you ready for this?" Lisa looked up from her papers. "As ready as anyone can be when 12 alien species want to kick us out of the galaxy." She tried to smile, but it didn't quite work. Alex sat down across from her. "Let me go through the situation one more time. The Vorthak Empire thinks we're weak because we won't fight their wars. The Zalani Confederacy says we're not real partners because we only offer help, not weapons. And the rest of the council agrees with them." "I know all this, Alex." Lisa rubbed her temples. A headache was starting behind her eyes. "But do you know why they're really angry?" Alex pulled out his tablet and showed her a list of conflicts. "In the last 2 years, there have been 17 wars between different alien species. Each time they expected us to pick a side and send ships to fight. Each time, we offered to help make peace instead." Lisa looked at the list. She remembered each conflict. The humans had sent doctors, teachers, and engineers. They had built hospitals and schools. They had fed refugees and housed the homeless. But they had never sent soldiers. "The Minthari-Gorvak conflict," Alex continued. "We stopped a war that would have killed millions. But because we didn't fight, the aliens think we did nothing." "The Sector 7 rebellion," Lisa added. "We helped both sides talk instead of shoot. Everyone lived. But the council thinks we're cowards." Alex nodded. "That's exactly right. They measure strength by how many enemies you can kill. We measure it by how many lives we can save." The ship shook slightly as it docked with the station. Through the window, Lisa could see alien ships of all shapes and sizes. Some looked like metal insects. Others were smooth and curved like sea creatures. A few were so strange that human eyes couldn't quite understand their shape. Captain Morrison's voice came over the intercom. "Ambassador Carter, we're docked and ready. The council is waiting for you." Lisa stood up and smoothed her blue diplomatic uniform. "Well, Alex, let's go find out if humanity has a future in space." The walk through the station was long and quiet. Aliens of all kinds moved through the corridors, but they all stopped to stare at the humans. Some looked curious. Others looked angry. A few looked like they felt sorry for them. The Galactic Council chamber was huge. 12 seats were arranged in a circle, each one designed for a different type of alien body. In the center was a small platform where Lisa would have to stand and speak for all of humanity. The council members were already in their seats. Lisa recognized most of them from her years of diplomatic work. There was war leader Thakmor of the Vorthak, his red skin covered in scars from many battles. Next to him sat Prime Conquest Velthara of the Zalani, her 4 arms crossed in a way that showed she was not happy. The crystalline delegate looked like a living diamond. The Hive. Queen spoke for billions of insect-like beings. The Aquatic Union representative breathed water instead of air and sat in a special tank. Each alien was different, but they all had one thing in common today. They all looked at Lisa like she was something they wanted to get rid of. Chancellor Vexmar of the Hegemony spoke first. His voice was deep and echoed through the chamber. "Ambassador Carter of Earth, you stand before the Galactic Council to answer for humanity's failures." Lisa stepped forward. Her heart was beating fast, but her voice was steady. "Chancellor, honored council members, I'm here to represent humanity and our values. Values, War Leader Thakmor spit the word like it tasted bad. You speak of values, while real civilizations fight and die for what they believe in. Where were your values when the Outer Rim burned? Where were your ships when the hegemony called for aid? We sent medical ships, Lisa replied. We sent food and supplies. We sent engineers to rebuild what was destroyed. You sent everything, except what we needed. Prime Conquest Velthara's four hands slammed on her chair's arms. You sent everything except warriors. The crystalline delegate's voice rang like bells. In our culture, those who will not fight are not considered adults. They are children who must be protected. Is this what humanity wishes to be? The galaxy's children? Other council members began to speak at once. Their voices mixed together in different languages, but Lisa could hear the anger in all of them. Alex stepped closer to her, ready to protect her if needed. But there was nothing he could do against 12 alien species who ruled the galaxy. Chancellor Vexmar raised his hand, and the chamber became quiet. Ambassador Carter, the Council, has made a decision. Humanity has been part of galactic society for 7 years. In that time, you have proven that you cannot contribute to our common defense. Lisa felt cold. Chancellor, we have contributed. We've saved millions of lives. We've stopped wars before they could start. We've built hospitals and schools on dozens of worlds. You have been useful, the Chancellor admitted. But usefulness is not enough. A member of the Galactic Council must be willing to fight for the common good. You must be willing to destroy your enemies. The Hive Queen spoke, her voice buzzing like 1,000 insects. The Kethtar systems have rebelled against lawful authority. They attack council ships and refuse to follow galactic law. This rebellion must be stopped with force. War Leader Thakmor leaned forward. We have been fighting the Kethtar for 2 years. Many good warriors have died. The Council calls on all members to send ships and soldiers to end this rebellion once and for all. Chancellor Vexmar stood up. His alien form was tall and thin, with skin that looked like metal. Humanity must prove that it belongs in galactic society. You will send your ships to fight the Kethtar rebellion. You will show that humans can be warriors, not just healers. Lisa felt the weight of every human who had ever lived pressing down on her shoulders. And if we refuse? Then humanity will be expelled from the Galactic Council, the Chancellor said. All trade agreements will end. All protection treaties will be void. Earth will be alone in the galaxy, with no friends and no allies. The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Lisa could hear her own heartbeat. She could hear Alex breathing beside her. She could hear the gentle hum of the space station's engines. How long do we have to decide? She asked. 30 standard days, Chancellor, Vexmar replied. Use that time wisely, Ambassador. The galaxy has room for warriors or for children, but not for both. The council session ended, and Lisa walked back to her ship in silence. The corridor seemed longer now, and the stares from other aliens felt heavier. When she reached the UES, Harmony, Captain Morrison was waiting for her. How did it go, he asked, though her face already told him the answer. We have 30 days to decide if humanity wants to be part of the galaxy or not, Lisa said. The price is becoming something we've never been before. Jake Morrison looked out at the stars through the observation window. And if we don't pay that price, then we'll be alone out here, Jake, just us in the dark. The UES Harmony traveled through space for 3 days before Earth came into view. Captain Jake Morrison had made this journey many times, but today, the blue and green planet looked different. It looked fragile, like something that could be lost forever if the wrong choice was made. Ambassador Lisa Carter stood beside him on the bridge, watching their home grow larger on the screen. She had not slept well during the journey. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the angry faces of the Galactic Council members. Communications coming in from Earth Control, Lieutenant Danny White reported. They're asking for immediate updates on the council meeting. Lisa sighed. Tell them we're coming in for landing. Full briefing in 2 hours. The ship descended, through Earth's atmosphere, and landed at the New Geneva spaceport. Lisa could see news reporters waiting behind the security barriers. Word had already spread that something important had happened at the Galactic Council. President Helen Foster was waiting at the spaceport with her security team. She was a small woman with gray hair, but everyone who met her knew she was strong inside. She had led Earth through first contact with alien life and guided humanity's entry into galactic society. "Lisa," President Foster said as they walked toward the waiting vehicles. "Your message said it was urgent. How bad is it?" "Bad enough that we might be alone in the galaxy in 30 days, Lisa replied. President Foster stopped walking. "What exactly did they say?" "They want us to send warships to fight in their war against the Kethtar systems. If we don't, they'll kick us out of the Galactic Council and end all our agreements." The president was quiet for the rest of the ride to the United Nations headquarters. The building had been expanded since first contact to include new chambers for dealing with galactic affairs. Today, those chambers would hold the most important meeting in human history. Dr. Amanda Brooks was already waiting when they arrived. She was the Secretary General's chief advisor on galactic affairs and one of the smartest people Lisa knew. Her desk was covered with reports and data tablets. "I've been analyzing everything we know about this Kethtar situation," Amanda said, without looking up. "The official reports from the Galactic Council say it's a simple rebellion. Violent criminals attacking peaceful traders and refusing to follow galactic law." President Foster sat down heavily in her chair. "But you don't believe that's the whole story?" "I believe there's always more to any war than what the people fighting it want to admit," Amanda replied. She pulled up a holographic display showing the Kethtar star systems. "These worlds have been under Galactic Council control for 50 years. They've never caused trouble before. Why would they suddenly start a violent rebellion?" Commander Alex Rodriguez entered the room carrying more files. "I've been looking at our own records of human contact with the Kethtar. Every time we've met them, they've been peaceful. They even helped us during the Epsilon Station disaster 3 years ago." President Foster rubbed her temples. She was getting the same headache that Lisa had felt on the space station. "So you think the Council isn't telling us the truth about this war?" "I think the Council has never told anyone the complete truth about anything," Amanda said. "Remember, these are the same species that thought humanity was lying about being peaceful when we first made contact. They couldn't believe any species would choose peace over war." The intercom buzzed and the president's assistant spoke. "Ma'am, the World Council members are here for the emergency session." The World Council chamber was full when President Foster entered. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat in their assigned seats. The air was thick with tension and worry. Everyone knew that humanity's future was about to be decided. General Peter Walsh stood up first when President Foster called for discussion. He was old for a military man, but his back was still straight and his voice was still strong. "Madam President, I've spent 40 years defending this planet and its people. I believe that sometimes the only way to keep peace is to be ready for war." Murmurs went around the chamber. Some people nodded in agreement, others shook their heads. "The aliens respect strength," General Walsh continued. "If we show them we can fight, they'll treat us as equals. If we refuse to fight, they'll always see us as weak." Dr. Sarah Kim from the Medical Council stood up next. She was young and passionate, and her voice carried emotion. "General Walsh, with respect, we've seen what war does. We've treated the wounded from conflicts across the galaxy. We've buried children who died because adults couldn't find a better way to solve their problems." She turned to address the whole chamber. "In 7 years of galactic contact, humanity has saved more lives than any other species. We've prevented more wars than we've fought. Isn't that strength? Isn't that something to be proud of?" President Foster listened as speaker after speaker stood up to give their opinions. The debate went on for hours. Some wanted to fight to keep humanity's place in the galaxy. Others wanted to maintain the peaceful principles that had guided Earth since the end of the Third World War. Tony Garcia stood up near the end of the session. He was a former Marine who had become a peace activist after losing his brother in the last Earth War. "I know what it's like to kill," he said quietly. I know what it's like to watch friends die for causes that seem important at the time, but feel empty later. The chamber became very quiet. Everyone knew Tony's story. When I came home from war, I promised myself I would never be part of killing again. Tony continued. When humanity went to the stars, I thought we had made the same promise. Are we going to break that promise now because aliens we barely know tell us we should? Dr. Amanda Brooks was given permission to speak last. She stood up and activated the holographic display system. Images of human activities across the galaxy appeared in the air above them. This is the hospital we built on Kepler 442b after the plague outbreak, she said. 2 million lives saved. The image changed. This is the school system we established. In the Centauri colonies, 50,000 children learning to read in 12 different languages. More images appeared. Humans helping aliens, teaching aliens, healing aliens, building with aliens, never fighting aliens. This is the peace treaty we helped negotiate between the Antel and the Vormar, Amanda continued. A war that would have killed billions ended with words instead of weapons. This is who we are. This is what makes us human. She turned off the display and looked around the chamber. The question isn't whether we're strong enough to fight. The question is whether we're strong enough to stay true to ourselves when the whole galaxy tells us we're wrong. President Foster stood up. The chamber became completely silent. We have 27 days left to make this decision, she said. I want every department, every agency, every branch of government to study this situation. I want to know everything we can learn about the Kethtar and their conflict with the Galactic Council. She paused and looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. But I also want everyone to remember something. 7 years ago, when we first met aliens, they expected us to be like them. They expected us to be violent and aggressive and ready to fight for everything we wanted. We surprised them by being something different. The president's voice grew stronger. We showed them that intelligent beings could solve problems without killing each other. We showed them that strength could mean protecting life instead of taking it. We showed them that peace was not weakness, but wisdom. She walked to the center of the chamber. The aliens want us to prove we belong in their society by becoming like them, but maybe what the galaxy really needs is for us to prove that there's a better way to belong. Maybe what the galaxy needs is for us to stay exactly who we are. The session ended with no decision made, but everyone knew the real choice was already clear. Humanity could join the galactic community by abandoning everything that made them human, or they could face the unknown by staying true to their principles. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, President Foster remained behind. With Lisa and Amanda, through the large windows they could see Earth's moon rising in the evening sky. Somewhere beyond that moon, alien civilizations were waiting for humanity's answer. What do you think we should do? President Foster asked quietly. Lisa looked out at the stars. I think we should remember that we didn't come to the galaxy to become something else. We came to share what we already were. Amanda nodded. The question is whether the galaxy is ready for what we have to offer. Outside, the stars twinkled in the darkness, holding secrets and possibilities that humanity was only beginning to understand. President Helen Foster stood in the secure communications room deep under the United Nations building. The walls were thick metal, designed to keep out any listening devices. What she was about to do would make the Galactic Council very angry, but she needed to know the truth. Are you sure about this, Madam President? Asked General Peter Walsh. Even though he wanted humanity to fight, he understood the danger of what they were planning. I'm sure, President Foster replied. We can't make the right choice without knowing what's really happening out there. Dr. Brooks, is Captain Reyes ready? Dr. Amanda Brooks nodded. The UES Peacekeeper launched 3 hours ago. It's our newest stealth ship, designed specifically for reconnaissance missions. If anyone can get to the Kethtar systems without being detected, it's Captain Nina Reyes and her crew. Far away in space, Captain Nina Reyes stood on the bridge of her ship and watched the stars flow past. The UES Peacekeeper was small compared to other human vessels, but it was fast and nearly invisible to most detection systems. Her crew of 25 was the best Earth had to offer. Captain, said Lieutenant Grace Parker from the communications station. We're approaching the edge of Kethtar space. I'm picking up a lot of radio signals, but they're not what I expected. Nina walked over to look at Grace's screen. What do you mean? Most of the transmissions aren't military communications. They're civilian broadcasts, people talking about food shortages, families looking for missing relatives, medical emergencies. Grace frowned. This doesn't sound like a violent rebellion to me. Dr. Carl Johnson looked up from his workstation. He was the ship's xenoanthropologist, an expert in alien cultures and societies. Captain, I've been studying Kethtar history. For the past week, these people have been part of galactic society for 50 years. They've never shown any signs of aggressive behavior. Then why is the Galactic Council at war with them? Asked Commander Roy Barnes, Nina's second-in-command. That's what we're here to find out, Nina replied. Grace, can you get us closer to the main Kethtar planet without being detected? The UES Peacekeeper moved deeper into the star system, staying hidden behind asteroids and using its stealth technology to avoid detection. What they found shocked everyone on board. The planet below them was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents covered in vast cities. But parts of those cities were burning. Smoke rose from many areas, and Nina could see the scars where weapons had hit the surface. Captain, I'm detecting multiple fleets in orbit, reported Lieutenant Kevin Brown from the sensor station. Vorthak ships, Zilani vessels, and several others I recognize from Galactic Council forces. What are they doing? Nina asked. Kevin studied his readings carefully. They're bombing civilian targets, Captain. Hospitals, schools, residential areas. This isn't a military operation against rebels. This is an attack on innocent people. Dr. Johnson was recording everything on his instruments. Captain, I need to get closer to the planet's surface. I need to document what's happening here. Nina made a decision that would change everything. Take us down to the atmosphere, full stealth mode. We're going to see this with our own eyes. The ship descended through the clouds and flew low over the planet's surface. What they saw made several crew members sick to their stomachs. Entire neighborhoods had been destroyed. Refugee camps stretched for miles, filled with families who had lost everything. There, Dr. Johnson pointed to a large area near one of the cities. Those look like mining operations, but they're not Kethtar operations. Through the ship's powerful cameras, they could see massive mining equipment tearing apart the landscape. Alien workers in different uniforms were loading ships with valuable minerals. Kethtar people were working the mines under armed guard. Those are slave labor camps, Grace whispered. The Galactic Council species are using the Kethtar as slaves in their own mines. Captain Reyes felt sick. This isn't a rebellion at all. The Kethtar are fighting for their freedom from slavery. Suddenly, alarms started ringing on the bridge. Captain, Kevin called out, we've been detected by a Kethtar patrol ship. They're approaching fast. Are they armed? Nina asked. Yes, but they're not targeting us. They're asking us to land. Nina had to make a quick decision. The safe choice would be to run back to Earth with what they had already learned. But she looked at the burning cities below and knew they needed to know more. Take us down, she ordered. Let's talk to these people. The UES Peacekeeper landed in a forest clearing several miles from the nearest city. Within an hour, a group of Kethtar arrived on foot. They were tall, thin beings with pale blue skin and large, intelligent eyes. They moved gracefully, but looked tired and hungry. Their leader stepped forward and spoke in accented but clear English. I am Zeftal, coordinator of the Kethtar resistance. We have been monitoring your transmissions. You are from Earth, yes? Captain Reyes left her ship with Dr. Johnson and Grace Parker. Yes, we're from Earth. I'm Captain Nina Reyes. We came here to learn the truth about your conflict with the Galactic Council. Zeftal's large eyes showed surprise. You came to learn, not to fight us? We came to understand, Dr. Johnson said. Our government needs to know what's really happening here before we make any decisions. Another Kethtar stepped forward. This one was smaller and wore what looked like medical clothing. I am Velkara, chief negotiator for our people. We have tried many times to make peace with the Council, but they will not listen to us. What started this conflict? Grace asked. She was recording everything on her translation device. Velkara looked sad. It began when the Council species decided our worlds had too many valuable minerals. They said we were not using our resources efficiently. They said they needed to take control of our mining operations for the good of the galaxy. We agreed to increased mining quotas, Zeftal added. We agreed to export more materials, but that was not enough. They wanted to move our people away from the mining areas. They wanted to bring in their own workers. When we protested peacefully, they sent soldiers, Velkara continued. When we asked to negotiate, they said we were rebels. When we defended our families, they called it war. Dr. Johnson was taking notes as fast as he could. How long has this been going on? 3 years, Zeftal replied. For 3 years, we have tried to make them understand that we only want to live freely on our own worlds. We have offered to share our resources fairly. We have offered to work together. But they only want to take everything we have. Captain Reyes looked around at the Kethtar group. Many of them were thin from hunger. Some had bandages from recent wounds. These were not violent rebels. These were people fighting for their survival. What about the attacks on Council ships? She asked. We heard that Kethtar forces have been attacking merchant vessels. Velkara looked confused. We have only defended our own space. We have never attacked anyone outside our systems. But the Council ships that enter our space are not merchants. They are military vessels bringing more soldiers and weapons. The truth was becoming clear. The Galactic Council had lied about everything. The Kethtar were not violent rebels attacking innocent traders. They were a peaceful people defending themselves from invasion and slavery. Grace's communication device started beeping. Captain, we're getting an urgent message from Earth. President Foster wants us to return immediately. But before they could leave, Kevin's voice came over the radio from the ship. Captain, we have a problem. I'm detecting 3 Vorthak warships approaching our position. They'll be here in 10 minutes. Zeftal looked alarmed. You must leave, now. If the Vorthak find you here, they will destroy your ship and say you were helping us. Captain Reyes faced the same choice that all of humanity would soon face. She could run and save her ship and crew, or she could risk everything to help people who needed protection. Grace, contact Earth immediately, she ordered. Tell them everything we've learned. Tell them the Galactic Council is lying about this war. What about the Vorthak ships? Commander Barnes asked over the radio. Nina looked at the Kethtar families gathering around their landing site. Children were hiding behind their parents. Old people were being helped to move toward the forest. These people had been running from war for 3 years and they were tired. We stay, she decided. We help them evacuate and then we face whatever comes next. Dr. Johnson stared at her. Captain, if we help them, we're taking sides in this war. Earth hasn't made that decision yet. Earth doesn't need to make that decision, Nina replied. Some choices are bigger than politics. Some choices are about right and wrong. The Vorthak ships were getting closer, and Captain Reyes knew that. Whatever happened in the next few minutes would change everything for humanity and the galaxy. The emergency message from Captain Reyes reached Earth just as President Helen Foster was preparing for the final World Council session. The 27 days were almost over, and humanity had to give their answer to the Galactic Council soon. Madam, President, Dr. Amanda Brooks said as she burst into the President's office. You need to see this immediately. President Foster looked at the video recordings from the Kethtar systems on her screen. She watched the burning cities, the slave, labor camps, and the families running from their destroyed homes. Her face grew more serious with each image. So the Galactic Council has been lying to us, she said quietly. About everything, Amanda replied. The Kethtar aren't violent rebels. They're people fighting for their freedom from slavery. And Captain Reyes is trapped there with Vorthak warships closing in on her position. President Foster stood up and walked to her window. She could see the United Nations building where the World Council was waiting for her decision. Have we heard anything from Captain Reyes since this message? Nothing yet. The Vorthak ships reached her position 3 hours ago. The President closed her eyes. Captain Reyes and her crew might already be dead, killed for discovering the truth that the galaxy didn't want humanity to know. but their sacrifice had given Earth the information it needed to make the right choice. "Call an emergency session," President Foster ordered. "All department heads, all World Council members, show them everything Captain Ray has found. It's time to make our decision." 2 hours later, the World Council chamber was packed with every leader on Earth. The video evidence from the Kethtar systems played on the large screens around the room. Many people were crying as they watched children running from bombed hospitals and families being separated at labor camps. General Peter Walsh stood up first. His voice was quieter than usual. "Madam President, I have spent my life believing that military strength protects innocent people. But what I see here is military strength being used to hurt innocent people." He looked around the chamber. "I was wrong to suggest we should join this war. We shouldn't fight with the Galactic Council. We should fight against them." Ambassador Lisa Carter spoke next. "General Walsh, I understand your anger. We're all angry. But fighting the Council would mean war with 12 alien species. Earth would be destroyed. So what do you suggest?" asked Dr. Sarah Kim. "That we ignore what we've seen? That we let these people suffer because we're afraid?" President Foster raised her hand for silence. "Before we decide anything, I want everyone to remember something. 7 years ago, when we first met alien life, we made a choice. We chose to be peaceful. We chose to help instead of hurt. That choice has defined who we are in the galaxy." She activated the holographic display and showed images of human activities across space. "This is what we do. We heal. We teach. We build. We make peace. The question now is whether we continue to do these things even when it's dangerous." Tony Garcia stood up from his seat. "Madam President, I've seen what war does to people, but I've also seen what slavery does. Sometimes the only way to stop evil is to stand against it, even if standing means falling." The chamber buzzed with quiet conversations as representatives discussed the options with each other. President Foster knew that whatever decision they made would change humanity forever. Dr. Amanda Brooks was given permission to speak. "I've been studying galactic law for 7 years. According to the Council's own rules, what they're doing to the Kethtar is illegal. Slavery is banned. Attacking civilian targets is banned. The Council is breaking their own laws." She paused and looked around the room. "We don't have to choose between war and peace. We can choose a third option. We can choose justice." "What do you mean?" asked Ambassador Carter. "We go to the Kethtar systems," Amanda explained. "Not with warships, but with hospital ships. Not with soldiers, but with doctors and teachers and engineers. We help the victims of this war without taking sides in the fighting." General Walsh frowned. "The Council will see that as an act of war against them." "Let them," President Foster said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. "Let them see kindness as an act of war. Let them see healing as an act of rebellion. Let them see peace as an act of courage." The vote was not close. 87% of the World Council voted to send humanitarian aid to the Kethtar systems. They would not send weapons or soldiers, but they would send everything else the Kethtar needed to survive. Within 6 hours, the largest humanitarian fleet in human history was being prepared. Medical ships, supply vessels, engineering platforms, and construction ships were loaded with everything needed to help a civilization rebuild. Admiral Betty Clark was chosen to lead the mission. She was one of Earth's most experienced space commanders, but she had never led a fleet into a war zone before. As she stood on the bridge of the hospital ship UES Mercy, she wondered if she was making the right choice. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Kevin Brown from the communications station, "we're receiving a message from the Galactic Council. Chancellor Vexmar wants to speak with you directly." The alien leader's metallic face appeared on the main screen. His expression was angry. "Admiral Clark, you are ordered to turn your fleet around immediately. Human ships are not authorized to enter the Kethtar war zone." Admiral Clark stood straight and looked directly at the Chancellor. "Chancellor Vexmar, we are not entering as military forces. We are bringing humanitarian aid to civilians who need medical care and food. The Kethtar are enemies of the Galactic Council, the Chancellor replied. Helping them is an act of war against us. Then I guess we're at war, Admiral Clark said, calmly. But we're fighting a different kind of war than you are. We're fighting a war against suffering. The Chancellor's image disappeared from the screen. Within minutes, sensors detected multiple alien fleets moving to intercept the human ships. War leader Thakmor of the Vorthak was leading the largest force, along with Prime Conquest Velthara of the Zelani. Admiral, called out Dr. Rachel Davis, from the medical bay. We're getting distress signals from the Kethtar homeworld. They're reporting massive casualties from a new bombing campaign. Admiral Clark looked at the alien fleets on her screen, then at the medical supplies filling her ship's cargo holds. The choice was simple, even if it wasn't easy. All ships maximum speed to the Kethtar homeworld, she ordered. We have people to save. The human fleet raced through space toward the war zone. Behind them, the combined forces of multiple alien species followed, ready to destroy anyone who interfered with their war. Captain Jake Morrison, now commanding the UES Harmony as part of the relief fleet, opened a channel to all human ships. This is Captain Morrison to all vessels. We're about to do something that's never been done before. We're going to help people in the middle of a war zone without fighting anyone. He paused, thinking about what Ambassador Carter had told him weeks ago about humanity's place in the galaxy. Some of you might be scared. I'm scared too. But remember why we're here. We're not here to prove we can fight. We're here to prove we can heal. We're not here to show we can destroy. We're here to show we can save. The fleet reached the edge of Kethtar space just as alien warships began firing on Kethtar defense platforms. The human ships flew directly into the battle zone, but instead of shooting back, they immediately began broadcasting medical emergency signals. This is the hospital ship, UES Mercy, Admiral Clark announced on all frequencies. We are here to provide medical aid to anyone who needs it. We will treat wounded from all sides of this conflict. War leader. Thakmor's voice roared over the communications system. Human ships, you are ordered to leave immediately or be destroyed. Admiral Clark's response was calm and clear. We're doctors, not soldiers. If you want to shoot at doctors, that's your choice. But we're not leaving while people need our help. The first human ship landed on the Kethtar homeworld 30 minutes later. Dr. Rachel Davis and her medical team immediately began treating wounded civilians. Engineer Lieutenant Kevin Brown started repairing damaged hospitals. Teacher Sarah, Kim began setting up emergency schools for children who had lost their families. None of them carried weapons. All of them knew they might die. But they also knew they were doing exactly what humans were meant to do. Above them in orbit, alien warships prepared to fire on the defenseless human vessels. The moment that would define humanity's future in the galaxy was about to begin. War leader Thakmor stared at the human ships on his screen and felt something he had never felt before. Confusion. The human vessels were flying directly toward his weapons, but they were not fighting back. They were not even trying to defend themselves, sir, reported his weapons officer. The human ships are broadcasting medical emergency codes. They're claiming to be hospital ships. I can see what they're claiming, Thakmor growled. Fire on the lead vessel. Show these humans what happens when they interfere with Vorthak military operations. The massive Vorthak dreadnought fired its main weapons at the UES Harmony. Captain Jake Morrison watched the energy beams tear through his ship's hull and knew his vessel was dying. Alarms rang throughout the ship as fires started in multiple sections. Captain, called Lieutenant Danny White from his damaged station. We're losing atmosphere on decks 5 through 7. Engineering reports the engines are failing. Jake looked around his bridge at his crew. They were scared, but none of them were running. None of them were asking to fight back. They all knew why they were here. Open a channel to all ships, Jake ordered. His image appeared on screens throughout the human fleet and was picked up by alien vessels monitoring their communications. Jake's uniform was torn and smoke was visible behind him, but his voice was steady. This is Captain Morrison of the UES Harmony. We came here to help people who are suffering. We came here to heal, not to hurt. If helping others makes us your enemy, then we accept that. Another blast from the Vorthak ship hit the Harmony. The lights on the bridge went out and emergency power kicked in with a red glow. We could have brought weapons, Jake continued. We could have brought soldiers. But we brought doctors instead. We brought teachers instead. We brought hope instead of hate. The harmony was breaking apart now. Jake could see stars through holes in the hull. But he kept talking. We know some of you think we're weak because we won't fight. But we think we're strong because we don't have to. We think courage means helping others even when it costs us everything. War Leader Thakmor prepared to fire the final shot that would destroy the human ship completely. But something made him pause. On his screen, he could see human crew members, helping each other instead of panicking. He could see them singing together as their ship died around them. What are they singing? Asked his second-in-command. The translation system identified the song as an old Earth peace hymn. The humans were singing about hope and forgiveness while their ship burned. They were singing about love while facing death. Down on the planet's surface, Dr. Rachel Davis was treating wounded Kethtar civilians when the bombing started again. Vorthak fighters were attacking the hospital where she worked, but she didn't run. She kept operating on an injured child while explosions shook the building around her. "Doctor," called Nurse Susan Bell, "we need to evacuate. The building isn't safe." "This child isn't stable enough to move," Rachel replied. "We finished the surgery." A Kethtar doctor named Thelvar was working beside her. "Dr. Davis, you should save yourself. This is not your war." Rachel looked up from her patient. "Any war that hurts children is my war." The ceiling collapsed in the next room, but Rachel kept working. Her hands were steady as she saved the life of a child whose species she had met for the first time that day. Engineer Lieutenant Kevin Brown was in the basement of the same hospital, trying to restore power to the medical equipment. Every time a bomb hit the building, dust fell from the ceiling and the lights flickered. But he kept working. "Kevin," called his assistant, Mike Chen, "the whole building might come down. We should get out of here." "Not yet," Kevin replied. "The surgical units need power for 5 more minutes. Dr. Davis is still operating." Above them, the surgery continued. Below them, Kevin worked to keep the lights on. Around them, the war raged. But in that small space, humans were proving that some things were more important than their own safety. The images of the human hospital workers were being broadcast across the galaxy. Alien species on dozens of worlds watched humans choose to help others instead of saving themselves. They watched humans sing while dying and work while buildings collapsed around them. On the Vorthak flagship, War Leader Thakmor's crew was watching the same broadcasts. Many of his warriors were confused. They had been taught that courage meant fighting enemies. But the humans were showing courage by refusing to fight at all. "Sir," his weapons officer said quietly, "the humans aren't shooting back, they're just helping people." Thakmor looked at his screen again. The UES Harmony was almost completely destroyed, but Captain Morrison was still broadcasting. The human was now sitting on the floor of his ruined bridge, bleeding from several wounds, but still talking. "We want you to know," Morrison said, "that we don't hate you for this. We understand that you believe you're doing what's right. We just believe there's a better way." The captain coughed, and blood appeared on his lips. "We hope someday you'll see that helping others is stronger than hurting them. We hope someday the galaxy will choose peace over war." The transmission cut off as the UES Harmony finally broke apart completely. Captain Morrison and his crew were gone, but their message continued to spread across the galaxy. War Leader Thakmor stared at the empty space where the human ship had been. In 40 years of warfare, he had destroyed thousands of enemy vessels. But he had never killed anyone who was trying to save lives instead of take them. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're getting messages from across the galaxy. Civilian populations on 17 different worlds are protesting the attack on the human medical ships." "What kind of protests?" Thakmor asked. "They're saying we murdered doctors, sir. They're saying we attacked people who were trying to help civilians. On planet after planet, alien civilians who had watched the human broadcast were rising up against their governments. They had seen humans choose death over violence, and it had changed something inside them. The crystalline homeworld, where emotions were usually controlled, experienced mass demonstrations for the first time in their history. The Aquatic Union's underwater cities were filled with protest songs. Even on the Vorthak homeworld, some citizens began questioning whether their military leaders were truly honorable. Prime Conquest Velthara of the Zelani contacted war leader Thakmor on a secure channel. "Thakmor, we have a problem. Half of few. My fleet is refusing to fire on the remaining human ships." "What do you mean refusing?" Thakmor asked. "I mean my own soldiers are telling me they won't shoot at doctors and teachers. They're saying it's dishonorable to kill people who won't fight back." Thakmor looked at his own crew. He could see doubt in their eyes. Warriors who had never questioned an order were now wondering if they were doing the right thing. Down on the Kethtar homeworld, the human medical teams continued working. More human ships landed, bringing supplies and volunteers. Every time an alien warship fired on them, the humans just kept helping people. Dr. Rachel Davis had saved the Kethtar child and moved on to her next patient. She had treated over 50 wounded people in the last 6 hours, and she showed no signs of stopping. "Dr. Davis," said Velkara, the Kethtar negotiator. "Your Captain Morrison, he died for us." "Why?" Rachel looked up from bandaging a wounded Vorthak soldier who had been brought to her by his own comrades. "He didn't die for you. He died because he believed that helping others was more important than staying safe." She went back to treating the Vorthak soldier, ignoring the fact that his species had just killed her captain. "That's what humans do. We help, even when it hurts, even when it costs us everything." The Vorthak soldier looked at her with confusion. "I am your enemy. Why do you heal me?" "You're not my enemy," Rachel replied. "You're just someone who's hurt and needs help." News of Rachel's actions spread through the Vorthak fleet. A human doctor was saving the life of a Vorthak warrior, even after Vorthak ships had killed her friends. It was something the warriors had never seen before. War leader Thakmor made a decision that shocked the entire galaxy. He ordered his fleet to stop firing on the human ships. "But sir," his weapons officer protested, "they're still helping the rebels." "They're not helping rebels," Thakmor said slowly. "They're helping wounded people. And we are shooting at doctors." One by one, the other alien fleets stopped attacking the human ships. The warriors couldn't bring themselves to kill people who were dedicating their lives to saving others. The war in the Kethtar systems didn't end that day, but something more important happened. The galaxy saw that there was another way to be strong. They saw that humans had found power in peace, courage in compassion, and victory in love. Within a year, the Galactic Council collapsed as member worlds demanded new leadership. A new government formed based on the principles that humanity had demonstrated. The Kethtar gained their freedom, not through military victory, but through the moral example that humans had set. President Helen Foster stood before the new Galactic Assembly and spoke for all of humanity. "We didn't come to the stars to prove we could fight. We came to prove we could heal. We didn't come to show you our weapons. We came to show you our hearts." She looked out at representatives from hundreds of worlds, many of them species that had once been enemies.